My name is Jonathan Taylor. I'm the Technical Marketing Manager for Civil Survey Solutions, and today it's my pleasure to not only introduce you to our technical webcast, Civil Site Design Pack Mode, but also I'm your co-presenter, as today it is myself and my colleague Andrew Banson presenting to you. Andrew, you're on the line.
Hi, Jonathan. Can you hear me?
Can, absolutely. Yeah. Hi,
Awesome.
Andrew. How you going?
Yeah, very well, and welcome everyone to the webcast today.
Yeah,
it's going to be quite a show.
Today's quite an unusual day because we're going to be presenting on something that was released, well, for those of you that were extremely keen last night, but for the rest of you that haven't seen it yet, it was actually released this morning, something called Civil Site Design Pack Mode. So we're going to start off with a presentation on PowerPoint, a few slides, and then really get into the meat of how you can operate this new tool. So let's get started off. So Civil Site Design version 21.1 released today, and on the interface you'll now see, instead of seeing data share at the top of the ribbon, you're going to see data manage, and we're going to show you this very shortly, but really this is where you can find the new functionality that we're going to be demonstrating to you today. So first of all, just a few summary points really, because as much as we can sort of unpack, no pun intended, a lot of what we're going to be doing right now over PowerPoint, a lot of what I want to show you is just going to be live. We really want to show you how to operate with this tool. So we just want to give you a quick summary, Andrew and I, as to sort of really what Pack Mode is in a nutshell, and then previous or current functionality versus sort of the new functionality that we're showing you. And really, I guess the first thing to note here, folks, is that really Pack Mode is an option. Okay, so what you're going to see today is entirely optional. You can function as you would do normally with Civil Site Design, with your data folder next to the drawing. So this is an option which you can choose to operate with, and you're going to see the benefits as to why you may choose to. So you're going to have the option to copy your data folder and have it compressed and placed inside the drawing file. And as I said, we're going to sort of show you how this whole process works. Now, Andrew, at this point, I guess some people might be saying, well, hey, you've got a data folder there. It might be interesting just to maybe understand why the data folder exists in the first place. I know a lot of you will know that it's your Civil Site Design design data, but why it exists outside the drawing.
Well, yeah, there's a number of reasons why we store the data externally, and there's a lot of benefits as to why you might still continue to store the data externally. So, as you know, when you're using Civil Site Design, we're constantly or quite regularly writing data to disk externally, and for large projects, that's great. You get some performance improvements, but where you might experience issues is when you are perhaps storing that data over a network or on a cloud or whatever. So we when the software was written many years ago, we just made the decision to store it externally, the data. There's a lot of benefits in that, but and as we'll talk about with a lot more people choosing to use cloud storage, it's one of the reasons why we've now given you the option to bring that data inside the DWG.
Yeah, that's great. And then really for us, I think that's the key benefit of what you're going to see today, Pack Mode, is that yes, you can start to work on remote locations without having maybe potential speed issues with having your data folder having to be stored with the drawing, etc., etc. So we're going to show you in a second. I'll talk through what we're going to be going through, but we will be showing you some document management systems in the guise of BIM 360. Just as we're talking about document management, I thought it'd be quite handy just to get a quick sort of summary poll from those of you that are attending, just to get a sense of who's currently using a document management system for your drawings currently. So you're not just working simply on your C drive or a local drive. So I've got a quick poll. So for those of you that are watching, you should be able to hopefully get a question in front of you, and it's a simple yes or no. Okay, some of you so at the moment we've got, it's very difficult to give you a summary of what's happening because it's all so fast. Over half of you have responded, and I'd say at least 2/3 of you do not currently operate on a document management system or cloud-based storage with your drawings. nearly got all of those results in. Now, I could leave it for the rest of you to respond, but just for time, I'm going to click on end polling and just share those results. Now, you can see there that a good proportion of you don't. Now, there could be a reason for that. There could be that either your business doesn't operate with any of these systems, or you find it maybe difficult to with the current setup.
I mean, the other thing I'd add is, I mean, if you use Dropbox, or if you use, even if you just store the data over a network, it's another reason why, you know, so not just purely a document management system or Vim 360 as such. You get a lot of benefits if you use, you know, if you run data over a network as well.
Yep. Fantastic. Well, thanks very much for completing that, folks. It's really useful to know. One last slide really is just the workflow of today's webcast. So we're going to use pack mode for the first time. We're going to have a project which has already been started and just really show you how to initiate pack mode. From that, just using some traditional functionality such as saving, opening and closing, and the results of doing that within a drawing that has been packed. Then from that, we're going to look at really some of the advantages that pack mode gives you just in respect of file management with your DWG, save as, copying, renaming within Windows Explorer, which, you know, normally we would kind of say, look, you've got to work with the data folder and there's a bit of work to be done there. So we'll show you how that can work, followed by the settings. And really some of the background content which you can choose to change or just leave, but really useful stuff in there, particularly when it comes to things like changing when the data folder is actually being unpacked or worked from. Unpacking and removing, we'll explain that when we get there. And then document management, so Vim 360, we can't really do that until we've explained some of the settings, because you need the context of knowing what's happening with the settings to look at how we can put a drawing, which we will do live. We'll save the drawing to the cloud in Vim 360, and then we'll work with it whilst it's still there with the data folder residing in an alternative location, which is kind of cool. Followed by really how you can set this up for new drawings going forward, creating a template file that incorporates some of these settings so that you don't have to go through the process of setting it up every time you start using civil site design. We've left space for the Q&A at the end. Whether or not we get time, I don't know. We may find that the questions come in as we're doing this particular webcast. So that's really there as a kind of bookend to say that really this is the sort of the last part of the webcast. So, Andrew, can you see my Civil 3D?
Oh, I can.
Fantastic. Right, guys. So what we're doing is working on Civil 3D today, but the premise of the actual tool, the functionality of the tool you're going to see is going to be the same on whichever platform you happen to be using. Okay. This one just adds, I don't know, just a little bit of complexity because we've got some Civil 3D surfaces in there. We've got some Civil 3D alignments. We've got some Civil 3D data that I've created already. So it's sort of a semi-started project for us to have a look at. So the first thing we're going to do is just pop up to the ribbon. So for those of you that are running 21 and previous, you'll see you've got data share. So what we've done is we've renamed this to data manage. Now this tool that we've created called pack mode doesn't really fit into any other kind of particular ribbon tab up the top. So what we've done is rename this because data share, which was there, is technically managing your data. And we have brought these tools into here. So the general tab, just so you're aware, for those of you that have used the software a while, has undertaken a little bit of consolidation. Some of the buttons and tools which were up here previously are more than likely found in this pull down. Our colleague Shane's done a wonderful job on sorting all these icons and bits and pieces out. So data manage. This particular drawing, I'm going to be using Windows Explorer here today, folks, just so you get a sense of what's happening. Okay, so there's no point me sitting here going to open and close, etc., and you're not really understanding what's happening with the drawing. So this drawing that I've got open is shown here in Windows Explorer. You can see it's 3 megs. It's not particularly big, but for the purposes of the webcast, it's perfectly fine. I've also got a data folder, and if I just quickly go to the properties, you'll see that that data folder is 4 meg. And I'm deliberately showing you this so that in a minute you'll understand what's going on with pack mode. So let's just close this down. I'm going to leave Windows Explorer off to one side. So we've got a 3.3 meg drawing and a 4 meg data folder. The first thing we're going to do is just try pack mode to see what happens. So to start off with, we're going to go pack into drawing. we're going to get this message. Now, what's happening is that the civil site design data folder has just been copied, zipped, and placed inside the drawing. Now, Andrew, I was going to mention this in a PowerPoint, but in respect of placing something inside the drawing, what we're doing is an entirely legitimate process.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, we're not like, hacking the DWG or anything like that. We're legitimately storing the data in the drawing file. So, whether you use BricsCAD or AutoCAD, it's aware of the data. If you run an audit or a recover, it's not going to destroy it. So we're legitimately placing information into the DWG using the database, the drawing database.
So that process happens almost instantaneously. It then tells you that pack mode is enabled, and you'll see the result of having pack mode enabled very shortly. And it's then saying saving the drawing will basically repeat this process. Now let's see what happens when we save. So we're going to click OK. And I'll show you Windows Explorer in a second as well, just so you know what's going on. So we're just going to simply run the save command. And I'm going to bring Windows Explorer into view. So as far as any user is concerned, currently, if you were to open up this folder, you'd look at this and probably go, what's the difference? Okay, I'm not saying it. Yes, we can see the zip file here, which we're going to talk about a little bit later as to why that's there. But as far as general day-to-day usage goes, you don't actually see any difference. Okay, the key difference that I know of, because I've just done the pack mode, is that this drawing is now, instead of 3.2, it's now 4.4 meg. So this data folder is compressed, and by compressing it, you're obviously reducing its size, and then is placed inside the drawing. If a civil site design user who is using a version that is not version 21.1 onwards decides that they want to start using this particular drawing, and they start to use civil site design, we do not delete this data folder, okay? The idea is that when we start operating with pack mode on, a copy is taken and placed into the DWG, and the benefits, sort of the more file management benefits, will be shown later, but for the time being, a copy is taken and put into the DWG. This is still live, okay? I'm still working with this data folder. Anything I change now in the drawing, or anything that I create, is still being stored in the data folder. Okay, so let's just go ahead and do something here just to show you how it operates, because really, as far as functionality goes, there's no difference. I can click on create grading. I'm just going to zoom into this polyline here, very quickly just create something called basin, and we'll just pop a template on there, and that'll do create update. There we go. So I've now got my basin added into this particular project. As soon as I click save, which I've just done there, you haven't seen anything happen, but what's happened is that data folder has been copied, compressed, or other way around, and then placed inside with that particular drawing. Now, what we're going to do is to close the drawing and see the result of this change. Now, at the moment, as I said, you're probably thinking, well, I'm not seeing any sort of major benefit right this precise second, but you're going to very shortly. So let's just close this down. We have to show you the basic functionality first. As soon as we close, basically, Andrew, there are little what's known as flags in the software. So when we do something such as a save or a close with our CAD platform, the software is actually telling civil site design to do something by that, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly right. So yeah, basically what we're saying here is we've detected a close, and we're asking whether you want to update the pack inside the drawing file.
Correct.
Because really, it's only when you save that that data that you've packed, is included.
Yeah, and let's face it, we don't always save and then close. A lot of us always just go close and then are prompted to save. So,
that's a point that we should emphasize is that when you go pack, if you don't save it, you haven't really packed it. So it's only when you hit the save button that you've truly packed the data.
So at this point, we're going to say yes, just for even though we know we did save it just previously, we're going to say yes, and then it just confirms. Now, if you are seeing all these messages and thinking, oh, have I got to deal with all of these? Yes, initially you can do, and they're really helpful to explain what the software is doing, but you'll see later we can disable them. I'm going to say yes, we want to close the drawing, and all I'm going to do is just reopen the drawing that I packed earlier. And the software says to you, civil site design, look, we've found a data folder inside your DWG. Would you like to unpack this data? And I'm simply going to say, yes, please. Now, if there was a data folder in existence already here, it would be overwritten. If there wasn't, a new one would be created, and you're going to see that in action very, very shortly. So what we're now going to do is to take this one step further and do really some sort of procedures which we wouldn't traditionally sort of recommend with civil site design until now with the creation of pack mode. And that first one is a save as. So I don't think there's a scenario where I'd ever say go ahead and do a save as with a civil site design project until now. Okay, so I've got pack mode turned on, and I'm simply going to do a save as for this project. So I'm going to click save as, and we will call this pack mode, just for ease, just so we know that it's the save as drawing. Pack mode save as. And we'll see what happens. So as soon as we do this, and to get, I guess, to re-emphasize what's going on here, the software will unpack the data folder that's inside the drawing, place it next to the drawing, and appropriately name it, as you can see there. And it's now saying, look, it's been loaded from the drawing. We click OK. And as far as functionality goes, again, if I'm a 21.1 user or a 20 or previous, I can just continue to operate and edit the project as I would do normally. So that it's really important that we understand this data folder here, whilst we're opening a project and working inside it, is live and being edited. As soon as we close, as you'll see very shortly, we don't delete this data folder. We'll talk about deleting it a little bit later, but we don't actually delete it. Okay.
Can I just jump in there for
by all means,
mate? So I just got a question. It's a really good question. It is, so what happens if CAD crashes when you reopen? We've actually put a few measures in. Firstly, there's the zip file, which we'll talk about in a sec. The other thing is, you can see in the Windows Explorer, there's a file there, $OP. Basically, we create this file when CSD is opened, and we will delete that file when you close the drawing. So if you open up a packed project and that file exists, then we know that, okay, things haven't, opened properly, or you might have had a crash or something like that. Mm. What that means is you have two data, you have your data folder data and you have your data that's in the DWG. Now you might choose to unpack that data and replace the current data folder, or you might choose to continue using the current data folder, which is the data you had when the crash occurred. So there are a few measures in place, and you'll see messaging occur if you receive a crash. What would you like to do? Would you like to unpack and use the data from the DWG, or would you like to use the current data folder? And as Jonathan's explaining, we will never delete the data folder.
No, we're not going to delete that. We'll talk about maybe towards the end you are technically, once the drawing is closed, you're actually free to delete that, but we'll talk about maybe why you would delete it when we come to talk about, for example, the temp folder location, which is something we'll talk about in the settings. So look, we've got this drawing, we've got save as you can see, it operates in the same way a normal drawing would with civil site design and the data. It will continue every time we click on save to put the data folder back into the drawing. Now, one other aspect of this is actually when we're using Windows Explorer. Let's just say, hypothetically, that I wanted to take this particular drawing here. I'll tell you what, let's just copy this one. So it's going to take this particular drawing, CSD pack mode, copy, and then paste. So I'm not going to take the data folder. So for those of you that have had it banged into you that you have to use, obviously copy the data folder alongside it, rename it, I'm not going to do that. I'm just going to go pack mode, rename. So there's my drawing. No data folder rename at all. Because in theory, what is inside it, well, not in theory, what is inside here is a data folder giving me, or a copy of the last data folder before I close the drawing. So I just kind of reopen or open up this drawing called rename. It says, would you like to unpack the data folder that we found inside the drawing? I'm going to go, yes, please. And it'll say it's loaded, click OK. And you can see here, all that civil site design data is coming in. And in Windows Explorer, there's my data folder. Okay, so obviously initially just simply opening, closing, saving. We've tried to keep it as simple as possible, and obviously enable current or previous versions, sorry, to be able to manage and work with pack mode. But when you start to use a pack drawing in this manner, it becomes far more powerful. Now, let's have just a couple of points here. First of all, auto saving. So if you're drawing auto saves, that has no influence on any of these settings. That's right, isn't it, Andrew?
That's right. And if your project's getting quite large, and we'll talk about that later on as well, you probably don't want it packing every time, every 10 minutes or so.
No.
So.
One other point about file size is this. So for those of you that aren't aware, you can actually have your civil site design data folder backed up for you by the software. If you go to a YouTube channel and type in backup in the search bar, you'll actually get a little video which explains how to use this. So active settings, miscellaneous tab, file copies, and there are some options to copy your ADV road/10 folder. A number of different methods in a time interval. This time is not hours, weeks, days, years. This is how often you open up that particular project. So on the 4th time of opening, a copy of my data folder will be created in a file type of my choosing and placed into, for those of you that may have seen it and wondered, this folder here called backup, and it's called SEQ, and then sequentially we add 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Recommended with this process that you don't have that turned on. Because what's going to happen is all of those backups, as they grow, will then end up getting put into the DWG at present. So if you weren't aware of this, have a look at the YouTube video, but if you are, probably worth setting that to none.
And you don't really need to use it anyway, because
not really.
You can simply just do a save as now.
Correct.
So the idea of having multiple backups in the data folders is not really.
Yeah, and that's it. If your backup system for your particular business is only grabbing drawings, it doesn't grab folders. It doesn't matter, because the DWG will have the data within it, which is great. Now we've looked at some functionality. Let's have a look at some of the settings behind what's going on with respective pack mode. So on the Data Manage tab, we're going to go to Pack Data Settings. So there's some handy stuff going on here. The first thing is that it's telling you where your data folder is currently residing. Now, for most of you, when you're operating sort of in this fashion, it's just going to be next to the drawing. However, we've got quite a nice, cool little button here where you can click, and off to one side, your data folder, no, the location of your ADV road/10 folder will open up for you. Let's just close that down. One thing that we've got here is the option to suppress messaging, and I spoke about this earlier. As you become used to using pack mode, as you become comfortable with operating with pack mode, there may come a point where you decide, well, actually, I don't want the messaging anymore. I know what's going on in the background. I've been operating with this for a while now. I'm going to suppress the messaging. So we give you that option, okay? The next part is the location of where your data folder gets unpacked. So when we opened up this drawing, which had been packed, it automatically unpacks the data for us inside the folder where our drawing is, okay, which is here. However, we have the option to choose where that location is, and there's good reason for this. First of all, Andrew, do you want to just mention about why we offer this particular folder location as an alternative?
Yeah, so this is a folder that's given to us by Windows, and that temp folder, and you can see it stems from a user folder there. You'll find that a lot of software actually store data in that temp. So this is a location that Windows has given us. Can generally get quite messy, and if you're running low on disk space, this is probably one of the first places you go to do a bit of a cleanup. So this is a path that's given to us by Windows as part of the user Windows profile. And yeah, this is where you have the option to store data.
Yeah, thanks, Andrew. And look, and you can change that folder location if you choose. So One of the benefits we've sort of spoke about earlier, Andrew, was that, that file path there for your data folder is actually a lot shorter than the file path that's up here.
Yes.
So even if you're not working with document management, which is one of the reasons why you might have this set, and we'll show you why later, that shorter file path can be useful. If you're not interested in changing it and you can't remember where this folder is, you can just click reset and that takes you back. I'm going to uncheck that, and we'll look at this when we look more at the at how we can use the with BIM 360, for example. Underneath, and this is where I'm just going to constantly keep bringing Windows Explorer back in just to show you what's going on. Underneath, we've got backup data whilst unpacking. So you can see here we've got one zip file as opposed to lots of different zip files. But this project here, CSD pack mode, had a data folder. And then I said, right, I'd like you to pack the data into the drawing. I closed it, reopened it, and it unpacked. Now, the process of unpacking, if there was any problem whatsoever during that process, we actually back up the data folder that's already in existence or associated to that drawing for you, just in case there was any issue, okay? For whatever reason, you might have a power cut within literally those few seconds. So we basically take a copy of that and zip it up for you. Now, we've written a white paper, which is in the release notes on our website. And you'll be able to access those via the welcome screen when you update. And that does explain the process of how to use that particular backup file and replace the data folders that's there if you need to get hold of it. There is a tiny speed difference with having that checked on, but for the time being, again, whilst you're getting used to using it, we'd recommend you leave it on. Underneath, we've got a couple of options, and these will be sort of expanded on more when we come to look at the drawing template towards the end. The first one is toggle on pack mode. So if you haven't been operating with pack mode in a project and you decide to, there isn't a great deal of difference to this. There is one additional question, but it's no different to clicking on pack into DWG, except the fact that you get the option not to put the data folder into the drawing. And that will become very relevant when we come to create a drawing template. Turning pack mode off is saying, hey, look, I'm going to keep the data folder inside the drawing, but for the time being, I don't want any, for example, if I save, I don't want that particular data folder to be packed into the drawing whilst I'm working. And that could be quite relevant when you come to things like revision control, which leads me very nicely onto using a couple of the extra tools at the top of the ribbon here before we move on to the document management and the templates. Andrew, have you got any other questions so far on this?
The only thing I was going to mention on that, so yeah, you can pack the data into the drawing, but turn off pack mode. So which means every time you save, we're not repacking it. And the beauty of that is you sort of have a milestone inside the DWG. I might have missed it, Jonathan, but did you do that example where you might make a change to the road and then decide, or make a few changes and decide you want to revert back to the data?
Going to do that now. Going to do that now with unpack.
Yeah, and I think that's pretty. I think that's pretty cool. The fact that you can have a milestone saved, inside the DWG file.
Yeah. So what I'll do here is I'll just click OK. Just click OK for that message, and we'll just let that close. So yeah, unpack from drawing. So what we might do here is decide that actually the data that I've got here, I'm really happy with. I like this, but I want to maybe have a look at making some quite disastrous changes to my road design. So I'm just going to click Save here first, which is going to pack the the data folder into the DWG. Then I'm just going to go ahead and make a change. So we're going to open up the vertical design here of this particular road. Just something pretty drastic, but let's just say you're having a play around with some options. So we'll just move this down and we'll just see the result of that change. This is just a real simple change to the drawing. What I'm going to do is close that, go back to Data Manage, and then unpack from drawing. So it's now saying, hey, you've made a change to your data folder here. Your data folder that you're working in is more recent. Are you sure you want to grab the data folder that's in your drawing, which you saved earlier, and use that instead? I'm going to say yes.
So it's sort of like an undo in a way.
Yeah.
You
there
might
we go.
want to revert back. You might have made some changes that you didn't like, and you want to just revert back to what the data that was in that you it already packed into the DWG.
Exactly. So having toggled that, if I toggled that setting to off, I could have just continued working and then unpacked at a point of my choosing. Again, you've got save as, you've got so many different options here to work with now in respect of revision control and changes within the project. So really the last one that we want to concentrate on is remove DWG pack. And remove DWG pack is in a nutshell saying, hey, remove the pack data from my drawing, and I don't want any packing to continue within this particular project. So I guess, Andrew, we're just setting it back to traditional functionality.
Yeah, so what might happen is you might be working on a project that's getting quite large.
Yeah.
Now, we don't want to have, I mean, you don't want to have a drawing file that's, 100 or 200 meg because, you're going to take some speed hits when you save and open. So if the project's quite a large project, you'll want to revert back to, what we would call the traditional approach of the DWG, the data being stored outside the DWG. Now, what that remove DWG pack does is it clears all the CSD data. So if your DWG was 60 meg with all the, or 100 meg with all the CSD data in it, we would remove all of that data and would revert back to the traditional data folder approach.
Thanks, Andrew. Okay, so really this leads us on to sort of that segues nicely, the discussion on sort of drawing size, etc. BIM 360. So this is pretty much the same data set we started off with, except the fact that it's called BIM 360. Just for reference, as you can imagine, we get a lot of drawings open during a webcast, and sometimes it can be difficult to keep track of what's where. So we're calling this BIM 360, just so we know what's going on. So in a minute, I'm going to save this to the cloud, packed, and then we're going to operate with it in the cloud. So I'm going to, first of all, just go to Pack Data Settings. So there's a data folder already in existence with this. This is not a template, this is an existing project. I'm going to say store CSD data in temp folder location. That means the drawing will be residing in one place. And when the drawing opens, we unpack the data to this location. You're going to see that happen very shortly. Why don't we just click on pack mode on down here, say yes, and then click on OK. So all we've done is check that box and turn pack mode on and then click OK. I'm going to just pop back to pack data settings, just make sure that that's all working as it should.
So just on that as well, we get often in the tech support, we get people, that might have some performance issues with the software. And more often than not, we find that those performance issues are because the user's running civil site design over a network. And as I mentioned, every time, when you're running certain commands in civil site design, we're reading and writing the disk a fair bit. So when that happens over a network, it can be a bit of a lag depending on how good your network is. What this allows you to do is perhaps store the DWG on a cloud or a network. However, the data, the CSD data, is running locally off your computer, perhaps off a solid state drive, which has made a big difference to the performance of particularly CAD software.
Yeah. Thank you, Andrew. Yeah. So look, we're using BIM 360 here because it's a solution. You could be using any number of solutions. If you want to know more about BIM 360, you may not have used it before, or you want to know a bit more, particularly after seeing what we're showing you today. We're not really doing anything related specifically to this. We did a webcast in, I believe it was April. My colleague Shana Rourke presented it alongside Adam Walmsley of Autodesk, and it was a really how to use BIM 360 alongside Civil 3D. Really good because it went through how to use it from scratch, how to set up the account, etc., and then operate with it. So if you're interested, go and have a look at that webcast. It's a really good resource. Now, all I'm doing is I'm simply saving this particular drawing to a location, which is cloud-based, and going to click Save. And at the top there, you will have seen very quickly, it was almost too quick, that the drawing has been saved there. However, the data folder is now residing in the alternative location. So we're just going to have a look at this. So Pack Data Settings, the data folder is here. whilst the drawing is saved somewhere else entirely. So just to show you how this works, I'm actually going to close it down. Would you like to pack the data into the drawing? Yes, please. I may have done a whole heap of changes. It says it's been packed. Click OK. Do you want to save the drawing? So this is my CAD platform. Yes, please. And then once that's saved, we'll go ahead and open it and see the result of this. So we're going to go open. And we're actually in, this is in 360 here. So there's models, and we'll go and grab. So Andrew, do you just want to quickly mention that there is a folder there?
Yeah, there is a folder there, but we don't use it. And I think in future versions, we'll clean that up. Well, it will be cleaned up if you're running locally. On the cloud, you might see remnants, but you might see a folder created, but we don't use it.
No, it's not your data folder, basically.
No,
it's just an additional little thing that gets created. But right, let's go ahead and open. And as we open, you can see here it's opening the drawing. Now, to give you an idea, we played around with this earlier, and it's a few things actually. We didn't tell the data folder to be saved to the temp location, and the data folder got put onto the cloud, and it was just, we had to kill Civil 3D in the end because the process of it's just so slow.
You couldn't use it. It was impossible to use, and it's the benefit of your CSD data on your local solid state drive or whatever.
Yeah,
and the DWG sync into the cloud.
Indeed.
Fantastic.
So it's saying, hey, we've got your data in the drawing. Would you like to unpack it? I'm going to say yes. It's been unpacked. And I'm just going to mention one thing again, a little bit of a plug for a brilliant webcast we had last week from colleague Todd Brewster, who basically did a webcast on Civil 3D templates. And one of the settings, which I'm fairly sure got a lot of applause, was the one where you can actually disable Event Viewer from appearing on your drawing. So if you get a chance, have a look at that webcast from last week on Civil 3D templates. Really, really good. So if you're not a big fan of Event View, you can turn it off. I'm not going to tell you. You have to go and watch the webcast. Let's go and have a quick look at the pack data settings here. If anything, just to open up and have a quick look at the temp folder. So here we go. There's a temp folder, and here is our data folder. This is live. So this data folder here is being used as we speak for a drawing that's based on the cloud. So really, really useful setup for this. So if that's how you want to operate, this is a good reason why you would be looking to use the temp folder.
So the other thing about the using the temp folder is you might not ever want to see the data folder. And particularly some new users might just want to operate with the DWG and not even know that the data folder exists. So they can rename the DWG, save as, and not even see the data folder. Now, for a lot of experienced civil site design users, that could be a scary thought, not seeing the data folder. I know of some users that actually like to delve in and review the files or change the files in the data folder. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how people choose to operate
yes,
now that they've got the option to.
Yeah, I think maybe in a few months, we'll when we do another webcast related to civil site design, we may just pop a poll up and find out who's using it and get a sense of where things are going. Look, there's discussion in-house, I suppose, with the development team, Andrew, about how far you can take this later on as to whether or not it becomes just this is the way in which you operate civil site design. And whether or not the current functionality then becomes optional, sort of the other way around. But I guess until we know how people are operating with this and using it, we won't know.
Yeah, we'll await for feedback on it.
Definitely.
But,
yeah, definitely. Great stuff. Okay, well, look, that was just shows you how quick you can do this. That was the document management side of things. By really almost checking one box, we've managed to now place our drawing into using BIM 360 on the cloud, and then we're operating with that drawing directly from there with our data folder being unpacked. The last part of this is to look at how we can start a project with this content already enabled, with pack mode already enabled. So all I'm going to do here is go and start a brand new drawing. Just going to go new. And again, for those of you that didn't get a chance to see the Civil 3D templates webcast last week, this is a perfect segue for what we're doing here. So here's my Civil Survey Solutions template file. I'm going to go and open this up. And now, first thing I will do is save it to make sure it's got a name. So I'm going to go save, pick DWT, which obviously sends us back to that location. Just to make life easier, I'm going to go desktop, pack mode datasets, and let's call this pack mode template. Okay, could be whatever template it is, but it's a template that already exists. It's already got my Civil 3D styles and settings, my layers, my blocks, everything already in it. I've just taken a copy. The difference with this is I'm going to go up to the pack data settings. And this is a fresh drawing. And what I'm going to say is, well, look, every time I start with this template, I would like to, I'm not going to check it, but we could just suppress messaging. So don't think that every time you start using pack mode that you have to go in and suppress everything and all this, because if you start with this template, you don't need to at all because it'll already be checked. The first thing you can say is, I want to suppress messaging. The second thing is, well, actually, every time I work with this drawing or a drawing that's based on this template, I'd like the data folder to go to the temp folder location. Doesn't matter if it's a local drawing or whether or not the drawing is cloud-based, because that data folder will still go here. I'd like to have the backup created so that if there is an issue, potentially I can have a backup zip file created. The key thing with this is the following: toggling on pack mode. So I'm going to say yes, I'd like to toggle pack mode on. This is the bit where you need to make sure you get it right. Would you like to also pack the civil site design data into the drawing? Now, think about how civil site design works. When it creates a data folder, it takes a copy of your common folder settings, grabs a whole bunch of them, things like your templates, and creates the data folder with these settings. If we did that right now, it would be taking a snapshot of my data folder, of my common folder, and embedding it into my drawing, which means every time I start with this DWT, I'll be using that snapshot of my common folder. Now, Andrew, there are benefits to having the data folder embedded in here right now, I suppose, for sort of different styles and setups.
Yeah, I mean, we wouldn't recommend it, but you might, for whatever reason, have a CSD template that includes particular cross-section templates, or maybe a setup for rural road, or a setup for urban, or maybe you're doing work for a particular roads authority. So you got the potential to do it, but I probably wouldn't recommend it. I would probably go for not including the data folder, which means when you create a new project, the data folder is essentially the copy of the common folder, settings folder.
So let's give that a whirl. So as Andrew said, we've said no, don't put a data folder into this drawing. However, it's going to when we start operating with it as a GWG. So let's click OK, and we will close this down. It does, just so you don't get confused, it will say, hey, you want to pack the data into the drawing? No, we don't. No, because that will mean it will start up using whatever our common folder settings are right this moment. So we say no. Would we like to save a template? Well, yes, please. Now, what we're going to do is start with that particular template. So we're going to go new. And I should have just gone from the start mode. Here we go, pack mode, drawing template. Yes, there's a data folder there. I can delete it if I want. Okay, it's not being used. Let's go open. Particularly as I'm just about to save this as something else anyway. So let's go save. AutoCAD automatically goes, hey, you've started with the template. Let's call it something. So let's just call this from template. DWG. You can see why that data folder is now completely irrelevant. Let's go save. So we've got a drawing, got a template. If we go to pack data set, well, in fact, I'll tell you what, why don't we start something? Why don't we start a civil site design command? So what we'll do is we'll go to the site tab, import points. Just see something a little bit interesting here. I'm going to open up a file which contains our old favorite Marion Street. It's got a load of civil site design points here, import points. Let's give our second zoom extents, and we've got ourselves a design. So now if I go to roads, data manage even, pack data settings, I've now got my, in fact, let's just do a save here just to show you what's going on. Click on save, and we'll just go pack data settings. I've now got this particular data folder automatically being placed into this particular drawing. Okay, so anything I now create will be created in here. When I save or close, it's now going to be placed straight into that DWG every time I start using this particular.
And once again, if you didn't want that data folder residing in the same directory, we just tick on source CSD data in temp, and you can do that at any point.
Yeah.
You know, if, we could do that now, and it'll.
Yeah, let's do that now. Yeah, yeah. So it's actually going to tell you. It's going to just go and move it. So we'll click OK. I've already clicked OK here. Go back to Pack Data Settings. There's my data folder sitting right there in the temp folder location. So you can do that immediately.
And you could delete then the data folder that was residing
from the desktop.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, look, I guess we're not really showing sort of tools as such and how to and workflow processes using the tools in civil site design. So this is I guess slightly shorter webcast than usual. But Andrew, have we had any additional questions pop up?
Yeah, look, there's lots of questions, and maybe there's a few we might raise live. But yeah, for us internally, you know, in the office, you know, for many years, you know, we've had people in training or tech support ask us, you know, about the data folder, and you know, why don't we store it in the drawing in the DWG?
Yep.
So we've now, you know, we've got the ability to do that. You know, if you've ever done our e-learning course, you know, the first topic is about the data folder. You know, you have to explain to people the data folder. A common tech support request is, I've lost my data folder. You know, and it could be because they've simply renamed the DWG and they've lost that connection. All these issues that we once have, you know, potentially go with pack mode. So as we mentioned, this is like an optional thing as we sort of, you know, phase it out. It could well be, depending on feedback, that this is the default. Maybe until a point where your project gets quite large, and then we might revert back to storing the data externally because, you know, as I said, you don't want a 300 meg DWG file.
No. Well, look, I will just quickly pop up, and we've got one more poll just before we finish, and I'd sort of do the final slide. But this is just to say, look, if from what you've seen today, are you interested in trying out the new pack mode functionality? I haven't put a maybe. Unfortunately, we're going to be purely black and white about this. But at least 4 of you, 5 of you, everyone's saying yes currently. And look, it only came out today, so your feedback is invaluable in not only how this tool currently operates now, but how it can evolve and how it can be improved. This is the first stage. A lot of work has gone into having this operate the way it does, and make sure we cover all the bases. And certainly 97% of you, with the odd 1 or 2, not just yet, but that's fine. But most
we'd expect that. You know, a lot of people are used to that, seeing that data folder there. So you know, might take some time.
Indeed. Well, look, I just thought I'd share those results. Very interesting. But yeah, look, it could be that you're entirely happy with the way that things work at the moment, and that you've got no need for this. So that's absolutely fine. But for a good proportion of it, it looks like it's going to be an extremely useful function and tool. Okay, well, look, folks, Andrew, I don't think we've got any other questions coming in. We might just pop to the final slide.
Okay, so yeah, there's actually a good question regarding files. So in regards to file size, so what'll actually happen? We do have a limit, and I think that limit of compressed data is 60 meg. So that's 60 meg compressed. If
after it's been compressed.
After it's been compressed. So at that point, we will flag a message saying, hey, look, you know, we don't recommend the use of pack mode because, you know, we don't want to blow the file up in size. If you've got really large surfaces, you know, you probably don't want to use pack mode. I mean, even with Civil 3D, if you have a really large Civil 3D surface, it actually stores the surface externally. Yeah. Cleaning up temp files in data. We actually have talked about creating a routine to clean the data folder. We probably will in time do a bit of a data folder cleanup routine.
So this is, do you mean clean up the temp folder?
Well, I think it's more related to the data in the data folder, because there might be some. It's actually been something we've continually worked on. Is cleaning the data folder out.
Yeah. Okay.
So another question. Like, our files are pretty large, 100 meg. Will this be an issue? Well, it depends on maybe. I think Jonathan might have recommended it at the start, but give this a test. Give it a whirl. Take a project, copy it first, use pack mode. When you hit save and when you open, yes, it will take a little bit longer, a few seconds or whatever. If the project is quite large, then you probably don't want to put that data into the DWG. No.
And just so you know, the pack mode operates with the whole software. I know we didn't have any pipes on that particular project. That was one of the things I was going to do, and I thought, maybe I should put some pipes on there. But you're packing the whole data.
Oh, it's a whole data file. If you had, say, a Word document or a PDF document or any HECRAS data or anything else that was in the data folder, it would be included in the DWG, which is pretty cool.
This particular webcast, it should be up by the end of the day onto the YouTube channel. So you can go away and have a look at that and share that or review it as you see fit. And then really we've got the July webcast schedule. We've got one final webcast. We get 5 in July because there's 5 Thursdays. Bonus month for webcasts. Civil site design AI. So Andrew, this will be your bag next week. Artificial intelligence, for those of you that don't know what AI means. Very, very interesting webcast. Sort of want to come along and absorb and watch. And see. Andrew, have you got anything that you sort of want to tease us with in respect of that?
Yeah, look, we've been working with artificial intelligence for a while now, and we've got some really exciting tools to show. So, if AI and machine learning is of interest, a lot of software companies are starting to adopt that technology because it's, a lot of it's open now, and certainly in design, AI has some great benefits in assisting the designer. So, I really look forward to showing the users what we've done and showing the software that we'll be releasing.
Yeah, very, very interesting, folks. I've seen some glimpses of it, and it's crazy how the software has learnt. And I mean learned, not through logic, but learned how to do certain things and make certain decisions. Very, very interesting. If you're interested in seeing, I was going to say the webcast for August, they haven't been scheduled yet. They will be next week. So we will have a list of webcasts for August coming up very shortly. Other than that, thanks again, Andrew, for your assistance today and
thanks,
your
Jonathan.
expert commentary. Thank you all for your attendance, and we look forward to catching up with as many of you as we can, hopefully next week. Thank you very much.